Алло, добрый день, как слышно?
Я Рольф Книпер, я слышу.
Добрый день, уважаемые спикеры. Добро пожаловать на сегодняшнюю конференцию. Меня зовут Арай, я являюсь представителем МФЦА и ваш технический модератор на сегодня. Буквально через пару минут мы
Давай, уже 1 минута и начнем. Ладно, все. Конец. Ужас, начинайте, все. Модератор на месте, да?
Здравствуйте всем.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги. Приветствую вас.
Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm Gulnara Echanovna from the Kunayev Academy. The Constitution is the supreme law on which our government has built, and in the year of the 25th anniversary of Kazakhstan, it is especially important to draw a conclusion to the traveled path and get together for new achievements. A lot has been done in these years, and the foundation for change is, as before, enshrined in the Constitution main value, Kazakhstani patriotism. Because what is patriotism? It is freedom, it is equality, it is mutual assistance for the good of the country. Patriotism is legitimacy. It's each of us, be that adult or child, deputy or official, any citizen, or just together we can impact how key principles that are laid in the Constitution are implemented by giving an example, by supporting each other, and by putting a stop to crime. That Kazakhstan's Constitution Day, it's a day of legitimacy and referring to our roots. You couldn't hear me just now, huh? Good day, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. The participants of this conference, I welcome on behalf of Nazarbayev Fund and me personally. And this conference is being held for the anniversary, the 5th anniversary of our supreme law, and its co-organizers are, as I already said, the Nursultan Nazarbayev Fund, the Constitutional Council of the Republic of Kazakhstan, the Astana International Financial Center, the Kazakh National Pedagogical University named after Abai, Sorbonne-Kazakhstan Institute, the OSCE Program Office in Nursultan, the Eurasian Law Academy named after D.Kunayev, and the National Volunteer Movement Accelerator of Goodness, Ambassadors of Integrity. Yesterday, as you all may know, was a wonderful international scientific and practical conference, the Congress of Asian Constitutional Courts. And there, the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Tokayev, has spoken with a presentation. And today, we continue to celebrate this honorable anniversary, and the topic for the discussion are constitutional values as a legal environment for the consolidation of society in order to overcome global challenges. Now you understand that the choice of the topic has not been made randomly. Now, right now we cannot say that humanity and Kazakhstan have overcome the pandemic and have surmounted this difficult situation which our country is also in and all the other countries as well. But certain successes we already have achieved, and as it is seen to a significant extent, they were achieved thanks to a robust legal environment for the consolidation of state and society. Now, the supreme law of Kazakhstan reflects human and national ideals and is in line with the request of social, economic, political, cultural, humanitarian, and other spheres of the activity of society and the state. So the main task of all the citizens and the state is to strictly observe the main law of the country and all the constitutional values stored within, and to fill it with real content. This is what was always stressed by the founder of the new Kazakh statehood, the author of the current constitution, Elbasi Nursultan Nazarbayev, and it's exactly in this direction that Kazakhstan is currently developing in the modern times, which was clearly stated by Kassym-Jomart Tokayev in his yesterday's address to the conference participants. Here participating in the conference, we've got the chairman of the Constitutional Council of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Doctor of Law Kairat Mami, the Minister of Justice of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mayrat Beketayev, Kairat Kelimpetov, the governor of the Astana International Financial Center, Baymukhan Margulan, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, there's Sabo, the head of the OSCE office, Vlastimil Samek, head of the UN Global Communications Department in Kazakhstan, Philippe Martinet, ambassador of the French Republic in the Republic of Kazakhstan, York Podelka, head of the GIZ representative office in Kazakhstan, Yevgeny Bobrov, Consul General of the Russian Federation in the Republic of Kazakhstan, Fatkulayev Abror, Consul General of the Republic of Uzbekistan in Kazakhstan, Baligbayev Takir, one of the organizers. He's the rector of Kazakh National Pedagogical University, named after Abai. And within this conference, there will be a presentation of the book from the Constitutional Council, and you will hear more about that from our participants today. We will have honorable Kazakhstani and foreign international scientists, practitioners. I think that the topic that has been stated today is quite an interesting one. And we already do possess a certain experience of holding online conferences. And you know, there's no bad without good, because it's better when you work face-to-face with the audience, of course, when everybody can speak their mind. But digitization enables us to encompass a broader audience. And this is why I should say that today, during this conference, we have participating as active participants and also audience members. I'll just read them. The rector of the Academy, of the Government Academy, Yerlan Kwanishvili, Ashanov Rahman Ashanovich. What was that? Sorry. Begintayev, Mr. Mohamed Rahinovich, the acting rector of Toragirov University, the team of the International University of the Silk Road in Shymkent. By the way, Shymkent is quite well represented today. And also we've got the team present of the South Kazakhstan Medical Academy as audience members on YouTube. And also the university, the South Kazakhstan State University named after Awezov, led by the rector, Ms. Pereneshina. And of course, I have to also note, and I'm quite thankful for the participation of the rector of the Kazakh National University named after Al-Farabi, Mr. Mutanov. We've also got representatives of the University of Kazakh Legal University with Mr. Nazarbayev, the rector of the Kazakh National Medical University named after Asfendiyarov Nurgozhin Talgad, the rector of the Caspian University, Mr. Zholdasbek Muslimovich, the head of the Almaty Academy of the MIA of Kazakhstan, named after Yespolatov, candidate of legal sciences, colonel of police, Sadikov Yerlan, the rector of the Eurasian National University, named after Gumilev, and of course the teams also, their colleagues, the Mukhtar Tolegin, rector of the East Kazakh University, named after Amanzholov. And also I'd like to note that here on the platform and on YouTube, we've also got the team of a whole library system of Oralkan Bakay and Osk-Kamenogorsk City, which unite 14 municipal libraries together with the led by the director, Ms. Shigitova. Well, I think that it's quite a big audience, and it's not by chance that you're all here, and the discussions that we're having today will be quite interesting for all of us. And now I'd like to pass the floor for the welcoming speech to the chairman of the Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan, Doctor of Legal Sciences, Mr. Kairat Mami. Please, Mr. Kairat. We're not getting the sound. We're not getting the sound from Mr. Mami. Do we have the sound from Mr. Mami? Not right now. We don't have the sound. I mean, somebody's got to do something about the sound. What's going on with the sound right now? I wonder if everybody else can hear. He can't hear us. No, Mr. Rogov. Well, the sound. Mr. Mami, there's something wrong with your sound. Yeah, I was just saying how good digitization was. And now it's tough luck. I guess that was a bit hasty of a statement. Right. So I guess I have to turn on my microphone, otherwise you lose the picture. So I think we'll pass the floor to Mr. Mami once again when he's presenting the book. And right now, let us continue then with the welcoming speech. The Minister of Justice of Kazakhstan, Marat Beketayev. Please, Mr. Marat. Thank you, Mr. Igor. Dear conference participants, from my heart, allow me to congratulate you on the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. The Constitution is the main governing law which enshrines the independence of Kazakhstan and protects the rights and liberties of the people of Kazakhstan. Is the main regulatory document of the country. In 1995, on the 30th of August, on the Republican referendum, this constitution was adopted and is in effect ever since. The main governing law of Kazakhstan has been in effect and governs all of the main social and economic reforms and facilitates the development of the nation. The constitutional norms govern the relationships between individuals and the state and facilitate fruitful dialogue between them, and also facilitate the shaping of a new generation of government servants. I wish fruitful work to the conference. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. Thank you very much, Mr. Beketayev. And now for the welcoming speech, would like to pass the floor to Mr. Kairat Kalambetov, the governor of the Astana International Financial Center. Now, as all of us know, this is a structure that significantly, or even to a large extent, we owe this structure to the constitutional amendments of 2017. And of course, that's a double the anniversary for those working at the center. Please, Mr. Kalambetov. Thank you very much, Mr. Igor. I hope you can hear me well. Now, I would like to congratulate everyone here with the upcoming Constitution Day, which is a very important holiday for our country. 25 years is a time period when we can assess the results and understand how certain provisions have impacted the development of our country. And we are focused at the AIFC on the economic development. And it is true that in 2017, a big package of constitutional amendments were adopted, and also what was put up for discussion is the possibility of creating the Astana International Financial Center based on English common law. Now, as all of the specialists, legal specialists know, in a country that is more close to European continental legislation, to in parallel include the ability to use English common law is a great challenge which could only have been overcome via a link in the Constitution or article in the Constitution of Kazakhstan. There was heated debate between lawyers, economists, and financiers, and the initiator of the idea made the final decision on the creation of the AIFC. The first president, Nursultan Nazarbayev, and only thanks to his strategic vision and political will, we were able to achieve this great result. In Article 2 of the Conference of the Constitution, we have Article 3.1, Clause 3.1, where it says that in Nursultan we can have a special legal environment for the financial center, and that also allowed us to adopt a law on the International Financial Center. And since then, the activity of the International Financial Center of Astana for the past 3 to 5 years has proven that the decision was correct. We have 500 companies registered from over 43 countries, and the right of the law of AIFC can already be used has been used in over 2,000 contracts, and We've got over 300 million of portfolio investment, over 400 million of direct foreign investment. The capitalization of the stock exchange was about $25 billion, and the AIFC works to the benefit of economic development, for the benefit of the people of Kazakhstan, and in more detail about the legal environment. And AIFC, my colleague, will tell you. The chairman of the legal council, Michael Blair, he's also a participant of our conference today. And the head of the state on the 11th of May, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, is also encouraged to start to promote the use of the International Financial Center. For us, it's of course a great honor and a privilege being a part of these constitutional changes and the constitution itself to serve the people of Kazakhstan and to demonstrate even more efficiency. And in this regard, I would like to wish all the participants of the conference great health and great successes in their practical and scientific and research work in the future, and I hope we all have a great discussion. Thank you very much. Mr. Kalambetov. Now, I was just talking about the advantages of digitalization, and I don't know if that's an advantage or a challenge. On the contrary, I just got a message that Mr. Kalambetov, the chairman of that Mr. Mami, the chair of the Constitutional Council, has been called to an urgent meeting to the president's administration, and he asks to present the book, to do the presentation of the book that we wanted to do later, to do it right now. And I don't think anybody will mind. Besides, we haven't even listened to him really due to the technical mishap. Now let's pass the floor to Mr. Mami right now, and he will present the book, a very interesting book, which was published by the Constitutional Council. If nobody minds, then please, Mr. Mami.
Звука нет. Звука нет. Нет звука. Karata Bazakovich.
Karata Barzakovich, still no sound. Well, my suggestion is I know of that book when Kairat Mami wrote to me that message. He said if he has no time or so I could carry out this presentation. So, Mr. Mami, let me introduce the authors to that book, and let's listen to the authors. So the book is called The Kazakhstan Way, Constitutionalism, Person, Peace and Prosperity, and this book has articles which reflect the evaluation by foreign specialists. They assess the role and significance of the Constitution of Kazakhstan in the context of asserting democracy, the supremacy of law and constitutionalism. The team of authors included some well-respected organizations or managers of coordination, control bodies, and some renowned scholars and scientists and researchers. So, colleagues, this is a view from outside, a view on at our Constitution. So I would like here, in this context, I would like to give the floor to one of the authors, the Queen's Counselor and a lead counselor in London, chairperson of the Legal Consultative Advisory Council of the Astana International Financial Center, Mr. Michael Blair. Mr. Blair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I felt very privileged to have been invited to contribute a chapter to this historic book which has just been presented. This is a very important day for Kazakhstan, as the publication of Kazakhstan Way, Constitutionalism, Person, Peace and Prosperity marks the silver anniversary of the Constitution, 25 very successful years. Today, I'm asked to speak about the Astana International Financial Center, which was the subject of the chapter that I wrote for this historic book. I must not repeat what the governor of the AIFC has already said. It's an important component, the AIFC, of the countrywide economic and institutional reforms aimed to enhance Kazakhstan's economic progress and inclusive growth. And my theme today is that in a real sense, the AIFC is a daughter of the Constitution. The historical record shows clearly what the first president of the Republic wanted for his country in starting the process for the creation of the AIFC. The establishment of the AIFC was one of the major projects in the Plan of the Nation of 2015. 5 of the 100 steps relate to the AIFC, and they together provide a solid legal foundation at the constitutional level for the new financial center which the AIFC duly became. The set of 100 steps and the subsequent constitutional framework reveal that the first president had 4 aims relating to the AIFC project. First, he wanted a financial center that adopted and upheld the best international standards of financial regulation. Secondly, he wanted a center that was infused with the spirit of the common law, as the governor has already reminded us. Thirdly, he wished the design of the center to be inspired by the new financial centers that had arisen in the Middle East. And lastly, and most importantly, he clearly envisaged a financial center that would bring benefits not just to an international clientele, but to the Republic of Kazakhstan as a whole. And the result of those 4 aims is stated succinctly in the Constitutional Statute of 2015. So I'd like to spend a minute or two now looking at the part played by the Constitution of Kazakhstan and that constitutional statute in embodying the president's inspiration. Firstly, the Constitutional Statute of 2015 made the framework for the new AIFC and embedded in the Republic's legal structure several of the crucial concepts which have been used as the building blocks for the initiative. I need mention only the 3 concepts: the law of the AIFC, the center participant, and the territory of the AIFC. Secondly, as has already been mentioned by the governor, there was the process of achieving constitutional certainty about the status of the AIFC. In March 2017, the Constitutional Council of the Republic of Kazakhstan formally reached a conclusion that there was no doubt about the constitutional propriety of the proposal for the AIFC. This was done in the context of a law passed by the Parliament earlier that month. And the result is that the amendment to the Constitution which the AIFC project required was thus verified as fully in compliance with the 1995 Constitution. That Constitution requires that the government should support economic development for the benefit of the nation as a whole. And I can see from that provision why it was important to not only to have a constitutional statute, but an amendment to the Constitution itself. It was necessary to give full effect to the supremacy of the existing system of law in Kazakhstan, and at the same time to ensure the effective functioning of the new institution. So the Constitution, as the supreme document of the nation and acting as the will of the people, as it itself describes, provides a solid foundation for the successful development of the country, and the AIFC is a legitimate part of the structure for that development. So there's a sure constitutional foundation on which the AIFC can function and develop. It's a well-designed combination of, first, an international financial center with its own legislative, executive, and judicial functions, along with the second component, the certainty that the independent functioning of those institutions is securely recognized in the law of the Republic itself. This was a valuable innovation in Kazakhstan, and one that I think has proved very successful over the last few years. It has benefits from the political perspective and the legal perspective. And so it is a true thing to consider the AIFC as a daughter of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. So my conclusion is that the AIFC is indeed a new and separate, but still essentially Kazakhstani creation. The Statute of 2015 created this segment of the state, and the amendments to the Constitution in 2017 established a firm foundation and a constitutional basis for the functioning and development of the AIFC. This is a new precedent in the entire region, a flexible special legal regime adapted to serve the financial community and enabling the AIFC to provide a unique platform and opportunities. And they're available for the international community and for those who are fortunate enough to live inside the Republic as well. So I express the hope that this daughter of the Constitution may grow up to achieve her full potential. Thank you for your attention, Mr. Chairman. I hand the floor back to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Blair. And I should say that Mr. Blair has contributed significantly to the establishment and development of the AIFC. So it looks like we have the sound on now. Oh, you do? Great then. Then it is my pleasure to give the floor to Kairat Mami, because I thought maybe somebody should show the book. So Kairat Abrzakowicz, the floor is yours. You're welcome. Thank you, Igor Ivanovich. Dear conference participants, let me welcome you all on behalf of the Constitutional Council, and on my personal behalf, I would like to welcome you and congratulate you on the 25th anniversary of Kazakhstan. And my colleagues, I do understand we are all learning how to do this distant communication. Sometimes equipment fails. Yesterday, let me confess, yesterday we were at the 4th Congress of the Asian Association of Constitutional Councils or Courts. More than 20 countries participated. It was thousands of kilometers away. The participants were out, but everything was great. But, we are all doing something. There is always the first time, so we're learning. So I would like to offer my apologies for those technical glitches of our computer. Dear colleagues, the formation and development of a modern constitutional and legal policy in Kazakhstan considers both national traditions and progressive international experience. When developing the draft of this current constitution, the experts included foreign lawyers as well, not just our local ones. There are international organizations who provided methodological support in forming the legal basis of the country, and a valuable source of information was also the study of the legal practices of foreign countries. And Igor Rogov has already presented the book called Kazakhstan Way, Constitutionalism, Person, Peace and Prosperity. This book contains opinions and judgments by prominent local and foreign statesmen, foreign scholars about the Constitution of Kazakhstan and all laws that are founded on that Constitution and the degree they comply with in general international standards. On the whole, they provide a high assessment of this constitution and the legal policies of Kazakhstan. The authors include more than 30 people. These include people from the Council of Europe, AIFC, courts of 11 countries, UN experts, and also lawyers and scholars, legal scholars. As for the presentation of this collection of books, as you know, some co-authors have been invited, and I am appreciative to Mr. Blair, who just gave a speech, because he is well experienced in the legal field. The next floor, I would like to give it, if Igor Rogov does not object to it. Well, I'm a moderator. The former Chairperson of the Constitutional Court of Georgia, Mr. Poposhvili, a great friend of Kazakhstan. The floor is yours. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes, please proceed. We can hear you. I would like to welcome all the participants, and I know that big events like that, they might have some technical difficulties, and I believe, well, I mean, I wish I were right there and see you live and in person. Of course, it would be much better. But still, I'm grateful for this opportunity that you provided me to, the opportunity that you provided me with. We can do with this online format. And still, there is an exchange anyway. And I have visited some events. We had these Constitutional Council activities in late August, and I was part of that. And sorry, there's a lot of interference and poor hearing. Anyway, any constitution aims at realizing and implementing the goals and aims and aspirations of people. At the same time, I also participated in other events. And of course, I remember the year 2017 when I was in Turkey. We had another event there, and we were a Georgian delegation authorized to discuss and present our ideas in front of the Parliament and Prosecutor's Office. And of course, we struck relationships with those people, and we know Mr. Rogov pretty well, and we respect him for his experience because, as you know, he was the chairperson of the Constitutional Council here in Kazakhstan. And also, there are also other well-respected people. So the work continued in 2018, and it became more intensive and thorough. The interpreters would like to apologize because all they get is just fragments and sounds, no speech. Sorry about that. I do hope that the efficiency of this constitution will persist or even increase.
Что вот эффективное заработание уже центра будет примером для всего региона, для других стран, потому что это показывает, как Казахстан очень хорошо, значит, может взять все новшества и сам уже в жизни все это реализовать. Еще раз поздравляю и желаю, чтобы конституционный процесс, который начался 25 лет тому назад, это, конечно, продолжится, потому что жизнь требует новшества.
The sound is back now. And the most important thing that our colleagues at Kazakh side are always prepared to be there for the development and the building of their principles and the improvement of legislation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And next up, I'd like to pass the floor to the professor of the chair of the Constitutional Law of the Uralsk State Legal University, Igor Ostapovich. Thank you very much, Mr. Mami, for passing me the word. And I welcome everyone at this great event. And the Russian Federation is following Kazakhstan's constitutional development and studying the experience of many countries, including our partner Kazakhstan, is quite important for the science of constitutional law. Now, what my section of the book is devoted to, specialized constitutional oversight in Kazakhstan from the roots to modern reality. And we have theoretical approaches outlined to the specialized constitutional control, and we also state that the Kelsen model of the constitutional control as a negative legislator in the modern period obtains different colors in its activity on constitutional control, and concretely they create legal norms. And we can draw the conclusion that Kazakhstan's constitution is a transitionary state which is open to ideas, experience, cooperation with any legal environment and legal system. And in the work we have 4 stages of the establishment of the bodies of controlling the constitution. I'd like to say that in 1995 they didn't just make the decision on establishing constitutional control bodies. They had 3 options. First is maintaining that function of the Constitutional Council. Second is making the Constitutional Court the Constitutional Council. And third, uniting the Constitutional and the Supreme Court into one Supreme Court of Kazakhstan. And as a result, they chose the second option, and that was a very foresightful decision, because the Soviet, Euro-Asian, and Asian countries, constitutional control bodies find it hard to exist, or they exist formally. And thanks to the model that Kazakhstan has chosen, the functions of the Constitutional Council as a constitutional oversight body, the functions are still there and they're in effect. And in terms of analogy for the Kazakhstani model, there was the French model of the quasi-judicial body of constitutional control, as stated by Pierre Mazot. The contribution of the French legal system, where they use, which they also use in Kazakhstan, can be looked at as a positive development. And the Constitutional Council, in the context of the presidency, is the optimal model to ensure the protection of the Constitution and to strengthen constitutional legitimacy. And along with peculiarities, the models are either original or modified. They still have national specifics. And the decisions of the constitutional councils are final and cannot be appealed. And also, the Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan defined that the decisions of this council act as current law. And then the benchmark legal positions were developed to protect the rights of the people and the protection of Kazakh statehood and identity. And there's a mechanism of protection of sovereignty and the supremacy of the Constitution. And drawing a conclusion, I'd like to say and draw our attention to that as a result of the constitutional reform of 2017, in which the Constitutional Council took part in, a unique for the modern age model of principle of dividing powers was established. And they found the universal balance. And if in the beginning of the 90s, in the science doctrine, there were sayings that Kazakhstan, as many countries in the post-Soviet space, is following the Russian way of constitutional development, then currently in Russia we can hear that we are following the Kazakhstani way. So I'd like to say big thanks to the organizers for this event for inviting me, and a big thanks, special thanks to Mr. Kairat Mami, the chairman, and Mr. Viktor Alexandrovich, who is here. I warmly welcome you to the apparatus of the Constitutional Council for the support and the help in research and science activities in the sphere of Kazakhstan's constitutional development. And special thanks goes to Mr. Rogov, Professor Rogov, the moderator of this session. Just a couple more words, colleagues. I'm remembering the year 2004 when Mr. Rogov was the chairman of the Constitutional Council, and back then I was a student and I was doing my internship in the Constitutional Council. And Mr. Rogov invited me into his room for the dialogue about the results of the internship. And when we were finished talking, Igor Rogov said that, do you know that your name and patronymic are special for the Constitutional Council and represent succession? And I asked him why, and Mr. Rogov said, pointing to the following, that the previous was Yuri Ivanovich, and I'm Igor Yuryevich. So this means succession, the former head of the Constitutional Council, I mean. So in 2018, the members of the Constitutional Council, a member of the Constitutional Council, Mr. Rogov, helped me defend my thesis. So to the Constitutional Council of the Kazakhstan, I have a special approach to them because they are my scientific parents. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mr. Igor. Thank you for your valuable comment. And I wish you further success in your scientific endeavors. Dear conference participants, I think now we may say that the book has been introduced, and we believe that it will be quite interesting and will foster constitutionalism in Kazakhstan and other countries. And you can find the text of the book on the website of the Constitutional Council, and the publication will be sent to all the co-authors and to the libraries of the country. Thank you for your time, dear colleagues, dear conference participants. And now I have an urgent meeting and I have to go, and to you I wish a fruitful conference. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mami. Now, taking this opportunity, I'd like to congratulate you personally and the whole team of the Constitutional Council with with the Kazakhstani main state holiday, the anniversary of the Constitution, and wish everyone luck, happiness, and success. And in the meantime, we continue. Now, colleagues, I just got a message that our conference has been joined by Eurasian Law, the deputy head of the administration of the president of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and Talgat Tanakov, the chairman of the former Judiciary Council of Kazakhstan. And he is one of the participants of developing the first text, actually, of this Constitution, that many of us participated in reforming the Constitution and the constitutional reforms, but he was actually at the roots of the first text of the Constitution. So if our colleagues would like to speak, you may just send a message to our staff, and of course, we'll give you that opportunity. And now we move on according to our program, and for the welcoming speech, we invite the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, Margulan Baimunkan. Please. Dear participants of the conference, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to participate in this online format of the conference devoted to the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. We have some government officials, scientists, prominent people from diplomatic communities, and as you know, we all said 25 years ago at the Republican referendum, where we established the Republic, the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan, where we implemented the best practices, and there were a lot of events ever since, over 30,000 comments and reviews and recommendations to the Constitution, and today is the 25th anniversary of the main law of Kazakhstan, which is the rampart of the vision of the President of Kazakhstan, and is the main governing law of Kazakhstan, which embodies the democratic ideas and is in line with all requirements with the market economy, and is also a dialogue platform for political and economic reforms, and it ensures the equality of all citizens of Kazakhstan. Our Constitution states that the Republic of Kazakhstan respects the principles of international law and also does not intervene in now in March of this year, the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, according to his decree, the concept was presented for the next 10 years. And this concept for the next 10 years envisions the main principles of our state and makes our state prominent on the global arena. And currently, Kazakhstan is a generator of ideas on a global level and is recognized by the whole world in the protection of human rights, in ensuring the rights and liberties, and is actively involved in this area. And we are the participants of many. We have ratified this protocol in July of this year, based on the decree of the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan. And we've signed a document on which demonstrated all of the biggest political achievements of Kazakhstan in the past 5 years, and also the regulatory documents. And today, with the participation of the MIA of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan is an exemplary example of ensuring rights and liberties, and also Kazakhstan is a part of 370 international treaties. The Constitution hears the aspirations and the needs of the people and provides all of the needed opportunities. Many people were deported to Kazakhstan in the past, and also Kazakhstan during the pandemic has demonstrated itself to be as a responsible state, and our ministries were able to protect and to evacuate all of our citizens from other countries where they were located. And distinguished participants of the conference, this is it for my welcoming speech, and I'd like to say what our lines of development are for the Constitution of Kazakhstan. The Constitution of Kazakhstan is a foundation for our state and also fosters the growth in the building of the authority of Kazakhstan on an international arena. Allow me to congratulate you all on the upcoming 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Kazakhstan, and I wish you fruitful dialogue. I believe that this is a holiday for every citizen of Kazakhstan, indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Baimukhan. Next up, we pass the floor for the welcoming speech. The Ambassador of the French Republic to the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Philippe Martinet. Please, Mr. Ambassador. Dear Chairman of the Constitutional Council, dear Head of the Nazarbayev Fund, Mr. Rakov, dear conference participants, I'll just be brief, and I'll just like to reaffirm the support of the French Republic to growing the cooperation between our governments and to uphold the initiative of the Sorbonne-Kazakhstan Institute. I'd like to say that in the context of the pandemic, we need a profound level of cooperation between our states, and we need constitutional framework and constitutional values. And you know that between our countries, there's a special relationship in that regard. As one expert recently mentioned, our constitutions have similarities, and this is not just because I'm here participating in this anniversary conference. I'd just like to emphasize that we would like to build on our strategic partnership with Kazakhstan. We want to develop our partnership with the Sorbonne Institute in Kazakhstan, with the Constitutional Council, and with the fund of the first president. I am very thankful for your invitation and for organizing this event. I am very happy to welcome everyone and to say that our Mr. Tifin and Mr. Christian Master are here, and I'd like to welcome them, experts from the French side. They are permanent partners, standing partners of the Sorbonne Institute in Kazakhstan, and I'm very happy that in the future we will continue this cooperation of ours. I wish everyone a great anniversary and a great exchange of opinions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. We value very much, we value highly your friendly disposition to Kazakhstan in general and to its lawyers in particular. We do know that you interrupted your vacation and arrived to Nursultan in order to, together with us, celebrate this great anniversary. Thank you very much for that. And taking this opportunity, I'd like to congratulate you I just got the message that by the decree of the President of Kazakhstan, you have been awarded a medal, anniversary medal, 25th anniversary of our country. I don't know if you already got the medal or not, but this is the news. Thank you very much. I didn't know that. Okay. I'm very thankful, though. Then, by our Kazakh tradition, all right, I mean, you know the Kazakh tradition, you know what you need to do, but you already did what was required. So I'd like to pass the floor now to another guest of ours, our big friend of the Kazakhstanis and of the lawyers in particular, the ambassador of the head of the OSCE program office, Georgi Sabo. By the way, Mr. Sabo, I think that you already have the medal, right? As far as I know, you've been awarded the medal as well. Here it is, right. Not only have I been awarded, I already physically received it along with the certificate. So thank you very much, and thank you for passing me the word. I welcome all of the participants. Very pleased to speak here today. We focus a lot on the development of the legal systems.
Also the development of legislative environment and other norms of international law. Why are we involved in that? We believe that the supremacy of law is one of the fundamental principles of security. And during in our efforts, we have always been trying to enforce the security of 57 countries as OSCE. It's basically all of the northern hemisphere. So Kazakhstan, of course, is aware of that. Everybody is familiar with the OSCE in Kazakhstan. You have already been chair of OSCE in 2010, and you are the only country, even now, you are the only OSCE country that organized and arranged a meeting, a top-level meeting. And during that meeting, the Astana Declaration was adopted in 2010, which stipulates the need to comply with the general norms and commitments in the framework of the OSCE in the area of guaranteeing and respect for human rights, basic freedoms, democracy, and the supremacy of law. As the OSCE Program Office, we have worked in Kazakhstan for 21 years, and of course our partners also include the Constitutional Council, the Minister of Justice, law enforcement authorities, some academia, and as well as NGOs. Currently, the OSCE office activities aim at supporting and assisting the reforms initiated by President of Tokayev. And we all know that those reforms are being discussed at the National Council for Public Trust. As head of the OSCE office, I also suggested to utilize the best practices and expertise, as well as the potential accumulated by OSCE to support that process. I do hope that that collaboration will reach new levels in our mutual interaction, and of course in the area of supremacy of law. I would like to join my colleagues and in congratulations of this anniversary. And with my medal in my pocket, or rather in my breast, I would like to wish that you fully implement the whole potential of your constitution in all areas of Kazakhstan. There is still a lot to do. The constitution is very capacitative, and I had worked with my partners on different drafts and bills, and I always was convinced that the constitution, yes, it is the basic law, but it is also the most top quality law of the country, so to say. So you do have the resource. So again, thank you for this invitation, and may you succeed in your work. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Sabo. And of course, a lot of projects that we have jointly implemented. You are absolutely right. I don't know about other sciences, but lawyers, lawyers do feel, and they have always felt special care from the OSCE, from your office. A lot of legal reforms. You helped us a lot in that. Now it is my great pleasure to pass the floor to Head of the UN Global Communications Department of the United Nations in Kazakhstan, Mr. Vlastimil Samek. Mr. Samek, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Igor Ivanovich, and all colleagues and participants. It is a great honor for me to congratulate the Republic of Kazakhstan and its citizens on this day of the Constitution. Please accept our sincere congratulations on this holiday, on this Constitution Day. Because this constitution is the foundation for the stability, peace, and accord in the country, and it is the basis for a democratic development of the country. The supremacy of law and development are closely intertwined, and they enhance each other. And of course, the assertment of the principle of the supremacy of law is critical for consecutive and progressive development, as well as economic development, sustainable development, and implementation of all human rights and basic freedoms, including the right for development. The Constitution guarantees the basic laws and freedoms on their path to stability, accord, and well-being. We wish you have a peaceful sky over your head, enjoy accord, stability, and happiness and prosperity. This is what we wish to the Republic of Kazakhstan. Thank you. Thank you for these warm wishes. I hope our collaboration will continue. It is my great pleasure to pass the floor to our German colleague. Famous, it is pretty famous not only in Kazakhstan but all over Central Asia. He's a specialist, good specialist, Jörg Pudelka, and he's head of the GIZ representative. And am I pronouncing it in German, this acronym? I'm not quite sure. Yes, you're absolutely right. And taking this opportunity, I would like to congratulate Mr. Pudelka on this high government order. He was awarded with the Order of Dostik, second class, and he was congratulated yesterday, but it's good. So, Mr. Pudelka, the floor is yours. Thank you so much. Let me first welcome you on behalf of Germany and on behalf of the GIZ, the German Society for International Development. GIZ works with different organizations and authorities in Kazakhstan, and we have worked for more than 25 years. So basically, starting from the early 1990s. And today, of course, I would like to congratulate everyone on this anniversary, on the 25th anniversary of the Constitution. And like in your country, like in Germany, I think it is the Constitution. It is the basic law that is one of the most successful laws or legislative acts that have ever been adopted during all of the modern statehood history. And this can be proved by the fact that there have been no fundamental changes in the Constitution. Any amendments that occurred in the last years are basically the current I think it's improvements of that constitution. So this is adaptation to the reality and to help to enhance the development of this country. The country, I mean, Kazakhstan is developing at an impressive pace, and I'd say a lot of people have already mentioned it's a view from outside, as you put it, right? Yes, indeed. Looking out from the outside, we're impressed with the development, not just as part of Central Asia, but all over the former Soviet Union area. Yeah, and this is another proof that the Constitution is behind all of that. The Constitution has outstanding qualities and nature. Why is this constitution-based development is going so well? Because the Constitution is basically applied in practice. I mean, the lawyers, they issue their own acts based on the Constitution, and the implementers of those laws, they apply such laws and bills in the spirit of the Constitution. As Kazakhstan is trying to become a rule of law state, a lot of success have already been achieved, and one of those victories was this year's adoption of a new administrative procedural code. And I already mentioned that at other events. It is an important step, basically, because this code also shows that the Constitution is applied, it is specified in that legislative law. All principles that we have in the Constitution, we can find them in legislative norms and laws. If you take this administrative procedural code, you can talk about the protection of trust, the principle of proportionality. So the Constitution is implemented in that way. And I would like to wish Kazakhstan to, I hope that the Constitution will all continue its development, and it will continue developing its legal system and all of Kazakhstan. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Mr. Patulka. And I believe you mentioned briefly about that code that had been adopted. Do you realize how many efforts Mr. Pudulka has spent to have this code adopted? I think for 10 years, for a whole decade, he had been working, he had been explaining, showing, demonstrating. He brought specialists and experts. And our specialists went to Germany to learn and see something, and now it was a success. This was a grand achievement. So it was this order, this award. That's a good thing. You're a real hero, and may you succeed in your further work. It is my pleasure to give the floor to the Consul General of the Russian Federation in the Republic of Kazakhstan, Evgeny Petrovich Bobrov. Evgeny Petrovich, please. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you to this international event dedicated to the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. The topics that we have on the agenda, yes, they are important for the social and political and economic significance, because the Constitution of Kazakhstan is the basis of all laws and all legislation that ensures, in turn, development in political, social, democratic, and secular areas. The Constitution of Kazakhstan was adopted 25 years ago, and it jointly with the other branches of power, I think it is efficiently implementing its function, and it plays an important stabilizing role in the development of the Kazakhstani society. Within a short time, historically, Kazakhstan has covered a long way of becoming an independent, democratic country. So the Republic of Kazakhstan meets global challenges and threats such as terrorism and illegal drug trafficking. It suppresses outspread of radical or extremist ideologies. Today, Kazakhstan is a well-to-do and prospering country, and its leadership is skillfully addressing any social economic problems. It enhances good neighborhood relationships and develops mutually beneficial collaboration with many countries of the world. In this respect, I'm glad to see that Russia is Kazakhstan's strategic partner, and our collaboration in virtually all areas is always going on and is improving all the time. Moreover, Kazakhstan serves as an engine, like a locomotive of all processes in the former Soviet Union. Kazakhstan feel comfortably and confidently in this country. All conditions have been provided for guests, visits like tourists, businessmen, politicians. So all these achievements, I think, are we all have to thank the Constitution, the current Constitution of Kazakhstan, for that. Dear conference participants, in conclusion, I would like to wish you successful work and have hard discussions. I guess the results of those discussions will be beneficial and useful for further development of constitutional fundamentals and principles of Kazakhstan. Thank you. Thank you so much, Evgeny Petrovich, and it was our great interest to follow the constitutional reform that had recently occurred in the Russian Federation. And we wish you, on behalf from the bottom of our heart, we wish success to all colleagues in Russia, and may you enjoy your work in Kazakhstan. Now, the next, I would like to give the floor to Abror Fatkullayev, Consul General of the Republic of Uzbekistan in Kazakhstan. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear conference participants. It is a great honor for me today to take part in this conference. I would like to welcome all participants, and I see a lot of familiar faces, and it's great to talk to them, although be it an online format. Still, I would like to extend my appreciation to the organizers for holding and arranging this conference. This is a scientific and practical conference which is dedicated to the 25th anniversary of adopting the Constitution of Kazakhstan. And no doubt, each country determines its own way to develop, and all those ways are fixed and recorded in the basic law. In my firm opinion, the Constitution of Kazakhstan reflects the principles of ensuring the rights and interests of humans, also the visions for government structure and civil society. And it is an undisputable fact that in this constitutional construction, a great role was played by your first president, by President Nursultan Nazarbayev. And during all that time, the basic law of Kazakhstan has been well tested by time, and it proved to be a really fundamental law in determining the national vectors of historical development, in ensuring the supremacy of law and compliance with the rights and freedoms and social guarantees of common human values. The Constitution has significantly contributed to ensure political stability and consolidate the Kazakhstani society. It guarantees the equality of all people of citizens of Kazakhstan, irrespective of the gender, age, race, sex, or social origin. So it solidifies the cultural and national unity. There is a Kazakh proverb. And at current stage, the Constitution is a basis for progress in developing and ensuring the future for all of Kazakhstan. Dear friends, as the modern statehood is developing, Uzbekistan is going side by side with this brotherly country of Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan has already achieved impressive results in all areas of government development of competitive economy, market-based economy. We are tied up with the brotherly Kazakhstani nation, and we share common legal traditions. We all share respect for law, and we all strive to live in peace and accord. And these are all common laws for both Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, because when you write those laws, when we wrote those laws, we were based on the historical experience of our peoples, on their adherence to national accord and peace principles. So we all want to set up a humane, democratic, and law-governed country. So a lot of similarities between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan help us meet the challenges, including the coronavirus pandemic, man-caused disasters, and it helps us to effectively meet and withstand any threats and ensure stability and security in Central Asia. As the year of Kazakhstan in Uzbekistan all was opened by President of Uzbekistan Mirziyoyev in 2016, he said, we value the ties of good neighborship with Kazakhstan. We are trying to enhance the dialogue and collaboration with our closest ally and neighbor. We have always been together in meeting the challenges, and today we are jointly building our beautiful future. Ladies and gentlemen, taking this opportunity, I would like to congratulate all of our Kazakhstani friends, colleagues, all of our brotherly Kazakhstan and the Kazakh people with this landmark event, the 25th anniversary of adoption of this constitution. I'm sure that this scientific and practical conference and the presentation of this book by the Constitutional Council will increase our knowledge in reforming informing our vision on democracy and help us further the constitutionalism on a global scale. May you enjoy successful work, all conference participants. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. I would like to confirm, Bro Jakangirovich, that lawyers of Kazakhstan and our Uzbek lawyers, we have very close ties. And the legal development coincides in many things. Last year, for instance, we had very close ties with your lawyers. We in Uzbekistan, we know that they are now working hard on using the elements of the English law, the fragmentary use of the English law elements in their national legal system. So here, of course, there is some interaction or assistance is provided by the Academy of Law of the AIFC. So taking this opportunity, I would like Broj Khamangirich, please say hello and best wishes to our Uzbek colleagues, lawyers, and please tell that we are always ready to collaborate with them. I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, the organizers and the key organizers of our conference, we have the National Pedagogical University named after Abai, and I would like to pass the floor for the welcoming speech to the rector of the university, Doctor of Pedagogical Sciences, Professor Mr. Balikbayev Takir. By the way, keep in mind that on his jacket on the left side, he has the medal that he just received today, the 25th anniversary of the Constitution, the medal. Thank you very much. Dear participants of the conference, allow me to welcome everyone at the Science and Practical Conference devoted to the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan. It's a great privilege for me to be here and an honor to be also part of the organizers. I'd like to express my appreciation to everyone from the National Pedagogical University, the oldest university in Kazakhstan. And now we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the guarantor of our sovereignty. And the Constitution has become a powerful political and legal instrument of the consolidation of our society. Our Constitution begins with the words, "We the people of Kazakhstan," and in these words is our greatest value, the unity of the multi-ethnic, multi-confessional people of Kazakhstan, and the universal goals and the universal values of the Constitution are the face of the modern Kazakhstan as a distinguished member of the global society, of the global community. And that has been made possible by the actions of the first president of Kazakhstan, Nur-Sultan Nazarbayev. And the Constitution is one of the most important means of guaranteeing freedoms and guaranteeing the inviolability of the individual. And this is one of the fundamental rights of the individuals according to the Constitution. That is why exactly the value of education is so important, because according to our Constitution, a person without education cannot quite become a full-fledged member of the relations within the government. And second, an education is an essential thing for the citizens. So that is why in the Constitution it says that everybody has the right for the Constitution. Also, education, the Constitution is a mandatory law, and that is why education can also be considered mandatory. But today, the government guarantees the rights to education, and that is implemented nowadays in Kazakhstan fully. And that is why we are developing the education system, which is being improved based on the needs and the capabilities of the country. And a very important role in education is played by pedagogical universities. And the leader in pedagogical university in Kazakhstan is our university, the Kazakh National Pedagogical University, named after Abai, which is a large center of education, culture, and science. And today we're holding the conference within the walls. At least we are here in the Sorbonne Institute of Kazakhstan, and you know that the Institute of Sorbonne in Kazakhstan has been created by the initiative of the Nursultan Nazarbayev, the first president of Kazakhstan, and was opened by him 6th of December 2014, together with the president of the French Republic, Francois Hollande. And today, the Institute of Sorbonne Kazakhstan is on a new level of its development, building its cooperation with French universities, coming up with new educational programs, and holding cultural and other events and forums. Just now, our ambassador of France in Kazakhstan just said that we're holding these events here. And I'd just like to point out that today we are one of the organizers, but together with the Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan and with the foundation of the first president, we have already held several Kazakhstani French forums, which are becoming a tradition. And that also began in 2018 with a scientific conference, which was devoted to constitutional law. So we're especially thankful to the Constitutional Council and Mr. Mami, its representative, its chairman, and Mr. Rogov from the Nazarbayev Fund, and the AIFC for the cooperation that we're doing, and all the organizers for today's conference. Now, dear conference participants, I congratulate you once again with our big holiday, the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of our Constitution. I wish everyone success, good health, and prosperity. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Mr. Balikbayev, for the warm words and for that great organizational work that was done for this conference and for our cooperation in general, for your cooperation with many state and non-government organizations. Although formally you are a doctor of pedagogical sciences, not legal sciences, but you know, I think you have become a lawyer a long time ago as well, as your institute, in particular the Sorbonne-Kazakhstan Institute, has graduates that are highly qualified lawyers, and not only lawyers. Dear conference participants, we are falling slightly behind schedule because we have so many welcoming speeches. So many people would like to salute our conference today. And there's even more people who wanted to speak out, but then voluntarily canceled. I'm seeing here on the platform the rector of the Eurasian Law Academy, Doctor of Law, Dr. Shakrapovich. They are also the co-organizers of this conference, and they are always actively involved. So he said that he would like to refrain from speaking today, but still I would like to pass on his warm welcome to you. And there are many people like that. And now let us get to the scientific part of our conference. And first up, I'd like to pass the floor to Mr. Nur-Sultan, the head science associate of, he's a candidate of legal sciences. Mr. Yerkesh Kalievich, Mr. Nur-Sultan, he is one of the participants in creating, as I said, the text of our current constitution. He was part of the expert council, and he was at the roots of our constitutionalism. I could even say that. Mr. Yerkesh, Mr. Nur-Sultan, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Igor Ivanovich. And it's a great honor for me to be at this conference. I'd like to thank and congratulate everyone with the 25th anniversary. It's quite a lot of time. A lot of work has been done and many changes were made. Of course, all of that it needs to be contemplated from a constitutional point of view. And on the one hand, the Constitution is the top of the hierarchy of judiciary relations, and thus it deserves great reverence. But on the other hand, and we don't pay much attention to that, but the Constitution always sets the model of the current and future development of the country. And in that function of the Constitution, in that way, the Constitution changes the least. Changes do happen, but for the majority of the aspects, the Constitution lays a big foundation for the development of society. What I mean by that is the following, is that the political image of society is always defined, and it's always been like that, not only with us, but it's been defined by the correlation of the government, the people, and the individual. And no matter what age we were to consider, what age in the past, we can never deny this fact. And that is why what depends on this relationship is whether the society will keep developing and progressing, or will it start stagnating. It all depends on the nature of these relationships between these phenomena, the government, the society, and the individual. And in our Constitution, when we were developing our Constitution, we had the task of determining that foundation. Although the foundation was, of course, determined before us in the works of scientists of the medieval ages, and they talked about that, about a civil society, about a law-governed state, the rule of law. All of that was there. But the thing is, we didn't have a great idea of that. But as the global path of development of all the countries is taking that route of building the optimal relationship between these three phenomena that I already mentioned, the Constitution makes them its value. In our case, the value is a rule of law, civil society, and the status of the individual. And if problems arise, they arise at the same time, simultaneously, and they are resolved in different historical ages. They were resolved differently. And the author of the Constitution, the first president of Kazakhstan, and the developers of the Constitution had this task in front of them to create that model of society and to lay that out in the Constitution in such a way that the Constitution itself would be compliant with reality, wouldn't fall behind reality, but wouldn't run too much ahead of reality, because that would otherwise be fantasy and not a constitution. That is why in the Constitution of 1995, if we read carefully, in various places we will find brief but ample characteristics. And in the first article already, it states that we will be building a rule of law state. Further on, it mentions the people as the source of power. And under the people, we don't mean the ethnic part, but generally all of the people living in Kazakhstan are considered to be its people. And what has to do with the social status of the individual, the social status of the individual is determined by those liberal values which are available to this individual. And all of that was enshrined in the Constitution in various articles. And as for a law-governed state, then those legislatory foundations that were laid out, that were envisioned for the government authorities, they are characterized by the fact that the government should act under the law and according to the Constitution, and the government cannot exceed those limits. And as for society, the civil society, us, it should be established, and the Constitution provides for that in the way that there is political diversity mentioned, openness of economy, and so forth. And by following this course, we may say that ahead of us in our life, we can really fill that constitutional model with content from real life, that Constitution from 1995. And it was correctly said already before that the Constitution of 1995, it is unchangeable. And those amendments that were made to it during the constitutional reforms, they weren't changes in the sense of changes. It was development of the Constitution. And a great phrase was said about that. And I think that this truly reflects the situation in our country, why these changes were made. And there were conversations that, you just adopted the Constitution, now 97 it's amendments, 98 it's amendments, 2017 again amendments, and even in scientific circles they started talking that the Constitution was initially developed on a level that was insufficient. But actually, the value of that Constitution is such that it didn't run ahead of reality. It did reflect Kazakhstan's prospects for development, but not faraway prospects, the prospects of the upcoming time, immediate upcoming time. And so that is why these amendments were necessary, and they were made. Now, as for these values that are enshrined in the Constitution, the rule of law state. And we could note that the first president, Nazarbayev, really stressed this issue in a big way. The reforms to the Constitution that he initiated, the legal reform, the administrative reform, the judicial authority reform, all of that was aiming society at creating and strengthening the foundations of a rule of law state. And he was also the one who exerted quite a bit of effort to develop market economy. In that context, when the Constitution was adopted, market economy as a concept wasn't known to many, and that is why it was stated in the Constitution that it was freedom for entrepreneurship and a strict observance of private property. And if today we may state that the establishment of a rule of law state and the market economy is picking up pace and the foundation is already there, and that is of course an achievement of the first president. But as for the civil society, this topic was not an acute or too much of a relevant one in the very beginning, and I think that's rightfully so. But now, when these components of the model, when the society has already been established and it's functioning, now is the turn of the civil society. And in that, our current president, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, has made his complete priority of all his actions to work with the civil society and to develop the civil society, and his latest initiatives are evidence of that. Now, we can name a lot of things, but one thing is evident, that of course he focuses strongly on developing the rule of law state, but his main priority right now is building a civil society. And when these three components, right, the three founding pillars that comprise the model of developing Kazakhstan will be in balance, that is when we can expect Kazakhstan to have ahead of itself some good prospects for development. And in that, we should see that is the benefit we got from that Constitution that was there in 1995. Thank you very much, Mr. Yerkesh, Mr. Nur-Sultan, for this very interesting presentation of yours. Ours is an online conference, but there are also material carriers of scientific knowledge. And Mr. Nur-Sultan, to the anniversary of our Constitution, has published together with Alima Panasova this book, which is called Kazakhstan in the Prism of the Constitution. It's a great big work which he asked to pass on to the rector of the Pedagogical University, Mr. Takir Ospanovich, and this is improvised right now.
Thank you, Igor Ivanovich. Thank you so much. But the book it's a co-authors. Yes, I named both co-authors. Yes, I know. The next speaker is Mr. Christian Mestre, Honorary President of the Schumann University, Director of the Institute of Law, Political Science and International Relations of the University of Strasbourg, Doctor of International Law, Professor, European expert. So he's our French colleague. Mr. Mestre, the floor is yours.
for hearing? Is correct? Yes, you?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay, it's okay. It's okay.
У нас работает перевод и на французском, и на
the
английском.
participant in this meeting, and thanks to Professor Aino Sabitova for a kind invitation. Take the floor. I should topic constitutional amendments under the Fifth Republic for my speech. To celebrate the Kazakh Constitution anniversary gives the opportunity to draw
Игорь Иванович, там Yes.
Yes?
Oui, oui.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Is
okay.
it right?
Yes, yes, you just can continue, please, monsieur.
Yes, okay, sorry. There is a matter of connection. So, I speak about the specific provision to organize the revision of the Constitution. It's an article to allow the substance to be adapted to new needs and new necessities, in brief, to modify the constitutional framework concerning the constitutional review are mentioned at the Article 89, but to avoid a result of the Constituent Assembly in 1958 decided to impose an excessively complete and exceptional procedures. The capacity to activate this process of France on a proposal by the Prime Minister or by the member of the Parliament. Then, in the first time, this proposal should be passed by each House of Parliament with identical terms. In a second time, the President of France could choose between two ways, either to organize a referendum by the voting, ratify or not the proposal, or to submit it to Parliament convened in Congress. It's a gathering of the two houses of the Parliament. In this case, the proposed revision is approved if it receives 3/5 majority of the votes cast. As regards the substance of the revision, all the provisions of the Constitution could be amended but only the Republican form of government. This prohibition was decided by reference to the beginning of the Second World War, when the member of French Parliament, just after the armistice, renounced to exercise their sovereignty and gave full powers to Field Marshal Philippe Pétain. And as this one lost no time in establishing a totalitarian regime, period known as the collaboration. The Constitution also provides for a time restriction. No revision should be commenced or continued, which jeopardizes the integrity of the territory. Since the beginning of the French Fifth Republic, 24 revision has been adopted, the last one in 2008, and 40 proposed revision failed, most of them because of an insufficient majority. We could propose an assessment of this process. First of all, for the most part, the constitutional amendments were adopted by the members of Parliament, convened in Congress. Only 2 of them were approved directly by the citizens. Then the revision could be gathered in 5 main fields, respectively the functioning of the institution, the European building, the French administrative organization, the development of social life, and finally, the political evolution of the territory of New Caledonia to the independence. Oddly, the constitutional amendment considered to be the most decisive for the institution was adopted according to another constitutional procedure. So the first president of France, Charles de Gaulle, wanted to strengthen the legitimacy of his function, and the best way for him was the election by universal direct suffrage and no longer by restrict suffrage. But the members of parliament were against this evolution since it transferred the capacity to elect the president for this one to the citizens. So to overcome this obstacle, Charles de Gaulle decided to turn another constitutional provision, this one for the legislative referendum and not for a constitutional change. In spite of the wrongly protestation of members of parliament, constitutionalists and other lawyers, President de Gaulle submitted on this legal ground to referendum the new designation method, which was approved by over 80% of the voters. And now the most important date and event in French political life is the election every 5 years of the President of France. At last, President Macron in 2018 has tabled a bill of constitutional amendment concerning the independence of the justice and the course of the legislative procedures. But it ran into opposition from the Senate, so this revision is now held up. Finally, in conclusion,
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, dear Professor Christian Mister. Yes, indeed, we have a very close collaboration with our French colleagues, and many people know that the board of experts that prepared, that drafted the text of our constitution included French specialists Jacques Attali and Mr. Dumas, the former president of the Constitutional Council in France. So our constitution is, yes, indeed, it is tied closely with the French one, and the reforms that are occurring in the French Constitution and in the Kazakhstani Constitution have a lot in common as well. But of course, there should be a separate talk about that. Now, the next speaker is Oleg Alexandrovich Zaitsev, leading researcher of the Department of Criminal Procedure Legislation of the Judicial System of the Institute of Legislation and Comparative Law under the government of the Russian Federation, Doctor of Law, Professor. Oleg Alexandrovich, the floor is yours. Thank you, dear colleagues. Of course, to hail digitalization, just to find out, do you hear me all right? Yes, very good sound, thank you. Great, then, dear Igor Ivanovich, my request is we have to work further on. If the sound goes off, please turn me off, no problem. And keep working. Don't waste your time. One more question to discuss. Since I have time limits and I want to respect the time, Igor Ivanovich, let me first still use this opportunity, and I would like to read the welcoming speech by our director of our institute, member of the Academy of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Deputy President of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Doctor of Law, Professor, and the distinguished lawyer of the Russian Federation, Lila Khabrieva. If you allow me to do that, because Ms. Khabrieva is the representative of the President of the Russian Federation, and she would like to, she's also a co-chair of the working group on preparing such amendments to the Russian Federation's constitution. So she prepared a welcome speech, and due to some reasons she was not able to participate in this large-scale event. Well, historically, 25 years is a short period, of course, but still we can be confident enough that the basic law of Kazakhstan is a significant and landmark phenomenon in the world constitutional space. It ensures preservation and improves the level of legal protection of citizens, supports and gains its trust to law, and progressive advance of the country and society. The constitutional development vector in Kazakhstan complies fully with the challenges of our time, which allows to multiply these achievements and make a foundation to strengthen modern constitutional principles and the legislative process in Kazakhstan. The Constitution of Kazakhstan every year confirms its efficiency, and it carries the best things. And because a lot of philosophers for hundreds of years, for centuries, have thought about this legal thought. So the Constitution has concentrated those human wisdoms, and it became a pillar for a modern social system. So this holiday, which is dedicated to the basic law, is even better because it marks an important milestone on the way to a truly democratic, law-based and social country, and the ability to implement the constitutional values. The Constitution, or the basic law of the country, has a colossal meaning in our days because the fast changes in some countries and in the international community make us on an hourly basis be concerned with what is going on. There are a lot of globalization factors, and we meet new challenges and difficulties. In these conditions of political and social disbalance, we refer to the category of constitution because it is the constitution that has proven its ability in history to turn the events towards constructive addressing of problems both at the intrastate and international level. The governments and the peoples as they fought for constitutional values. They have covered a long and difficult way. Earlier in the third millennium, a lot of countries had gone through large-scale constitutional transformations, and their dynamics, of course, were very much different from similar processes that occurred later. We can say that the world constitutional development trend is now about in enhancing the cultural and historical specificity of constitution, because they record in both the national and constitutional identity. They have original concepts of commensurate universal and national values. Modern constitutional reforms demonstrate a unique surge of authenticity, and they record such enduring values as the family and social justice. And in lieu of hierarchical universal and national law, now they're changed by the combination of those, which implies justice and equality. And this is how the governments now form their new strategies, and such evolution is also adopted by our country. In Russia in 2020, some constitutional amendments were made and adopted about culture as a unique heritage of a multinational or multi-ethnical people, to preserve the ethnocultural and linguistic diversity, the ancestors' memory, the faith in God, and other family values and traditional for Russia. Traditional for Russia. In this new constitutional cycle, Russia is developing a new model of constitution which complies with the state security, and it reflects the government and civil identity of Russia, its social cultural codes and legal ideals. This valuable or social viable model is based on the accumulated historical experience, and it is realized not only by the power but also by broad public. I believe the constitutional processes in your countries is also a good, promising thing to further research. It is great to see that Russia and Kazakhstan are open for collaboration and are ready to continue this fruitful discussion that will help not only to implement the scientific potential of our countries, but also increase their competitiveness in the world arena. And in conclusion, dear colleagues and dear participants of this interesting forum, I would like to mention one more thing. I firmly believe that our collaboration between Russia and Kazakhstan in the area of science will further this equal partnership. From the bottom of my heart, I wish the noble people of Kazakhstan and well-respected people of Kazakhstan to multiply its advances and achievements. Please develop and prosper. Thank you for your attention. And Igor Ivanovich, if you find an opportunity, please send us one copy of that great book that you have presented for Ms. Habrieva. Thank you so much. I try to be in time. Thank you, Oleg Alexandrovich, and thank you for such speech, and thank you for the collaboration that we have been doing for many years. And Oleg Alexandrovich is a specialist, as you see. He's a specialist in criminal and criminal procedural legislation, and also reforms of our system. So he has been part as an expert of those reforms. So thank you so much. As for the Institute of Legislation and Comparative Law, and its director, Ms. Habrieva, and for 10 years, the lawyers of Kazakhstan have collaborated with this institute and with her, and we closely observed the constitutional reform in your country and the debates that you had between scholars and MPs in the Russian Federation. we tried to help what we could because she did invite our lawyers to conferences and to share their minds. I should note that this cooperation is very constructive, and taking this opportunity, I would like to ask Oleg Alexandrovich, please say hello and best wishes to Ms. Kharuleva, to your director. We haven't met for a long time already because, you know, all international conferences are prohibited, but she's also a member of the Venice Commission of the Council of Europe. You know, she's from the Russian Federation. She represents the Russian Federation. So during different international events, we always collaborate with each other. We talk to each other. So I believe this process will continue. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Igor Ivanovich. I will tell your warm words to Ms. Gabrieva, and we will be waiting for this book presented, and we will be waiting for you personally. In late October, we are going to have an international forum, so I hope it will be like live format. So, Oleg Alexandrovich, and unfortunately, my relation to that book is that I have the author who published that. He hears us, so I think, so please ask him for us. We need that book. Yeah, if he is not able to go to Moscow, with his permission, it will be my pleasure to take this book to Moscow and give it to you. I know this role all too well. I have done that many times. I brought some things to other people. And anyway, it will be my pleasure, and I'll bring this book to Ms. Karulova, and your cash is, we'll go together. We'll bring this book together. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to pass the floor now for the next speech to Professor, our colleague from Poland, the Vice Rector of the Upper Silesian Higher School of Trade, Mr. Andrzej Beztyga. Please, Professor. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation, for giving me the chance to speak. I welcome you from Poland. On behalf of the Polish Association of Constitutional Law, I welcome, first of all, my Kazakhstani colleagues, the lawyers, the constitutionalists, and including also my friends, the constitutionalists at the Eurasian Kunayev Academy of Law, the Professor Rector Javiri, Albaeva, the head of chair of constitutional law, Professor Aitkozhin, and I congratulate all of you with the 25th anniversary of the establishment of your constitution. It is indeed a holiday, and Kazakhstan is a country which triggers significant interest with the Poles in the positive sense of the word, and the discussion of the trends and the directions of the development of the constitutional development of this country demands constant contact with the prerequisites within this doctrine. And from my observations and comparisons, I can say that this country, compared to other countries, the Polish researchers in that aspect are in a good position. And I'd like to emphasize that Polish science, and I mean political science in the science of constitutional law, has paid quite a lot of research attention to Kazakhstan. On the one hand, this comparative research was aimed at studying the origin and the current form and the directions of evolution of that system, and on the other hand, they allow the researchers from Kazakhstan to get acquainted with our Polish constitutional tradition and the Polish constitutional decisions. And the Polish Constitution, starting from 3rd of May 1991, that was the first in Europe written constitution. But in the development of Kazakhstani constitutionalism, I can highlight three main stages. And the first stage, which I think is quite an important one, and that is the autochthonous root, pre-democratic, quasi-constitutional norms and system foundations. Kazakhstan leads currently a rational, substantiated policy of intensively using traditions of the domestic system, which serves the popularization of national identity and constitutional identity as well, because our traditions, Kazakh tradition, is also a constitutional value. And the monuments of Kazakhstani law can include the code of the 17th century, the Bright Way of Kasim Khan, and the famous book Zhetizharki, written and published in the 18th century. The former regulated the law for private property, issues of military and diplomatic law, and also the relations between separate tribes and communities. And Zhetizharki, adopted under Han Tauke in the beginning of the 18th century, apart from the rights to private property, would regulate family relations, trial, and also, what should be emphasized, it contained the rules of managing the Khanate, of ruling the Khanate. And it's a pretty interesting institution, also the Kazakh B institution, but we don't have so much time. In principle, both of these codes were attempts to systemize customary law, and they were characterized by a high viability, and apart from that would determine the frameworks of the legal environment of the Kazakh Khanate, which existed up until 1847. But even after the Khanate joining the Russian Empire, these codes were still used by the Kazakhs. And in modern Kazakhstani law, legal science, they are considered the cornerstones of Kazakh constitutionalism. And the second stage is the stage of the Soviet constitutionalism, which in a known sense was for us, Poland and Kazakhstan, our mutual shared experience. And the third stage is a constitutional stage of a sovereign state. The Kazakhstani constitution has been in effect for already 25 years, and throughout that time there have been insignificant as well as significant amendments made to it. And now the constitutional system of Kazakhstan is open for the constitutional experience of other countries, including European states. And to popularize this openness while maintaining national tradition, national tradition, our national legal tradition is also an element of a constitution and a constitutional value. It's important to, first of all, ensure the openness of Kazakhstani constitutional doctrine to the constitutional systems of other states. Consequently, it seems natural, the postulate of conducting comparative studies in the area of constitutional law jointly with the representatives of this doctrine. Thank you very much for your time, and Rahmet. Thank you, Mr. Bishtiga, for this very interesting message of yours. And now, dear colleagues, it's an anniversary date today, and listening to our Polish colleague, I'm feeling I'm recalling a little bit. Allow me to share with you this impression of mine from what I've heard. In about a year or two after moving to Astana, the capital, currently called Nursultan, I was on a business trip to Almaty, and I was driving along the street. Probably the Almaty residents don't remember that. The streets were dark, like you drive down Abai lane with your headlamps on. There were no lights. They were saving energy. And then we come to Warsaw to study the penitentiary system of Poland. And in Warsaw, they have the OSCE office there. And our Polish colleague is driving the car. We're in the car. Everything is shining. Commercials around, and I was sitting there sad, and he said, like, why are you sad? And I said, I came from Almaty, and it was dark there, and it was so beautiful. And he said, don't worry, it was like that here a few years ago as well. You have a smart president. Almaty will be as shiny as Warsaw, not less. So when you drive down Almaty with all the fancy lights, just remember what it was like before. So let's move on. Now I'd like to pass the floor to a professor of the Georgian American University, Georgi Gorbunidze. Hello, first of all, I'd like to welcome you and thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak before this distinguished audience, and congratulate you on the Constitution Day, because the Constitution is the most important legal document for any state, no matter whether it's a written constitution or not. As the Constitution, it actually reflects the principles, the main principles which any state relies on. And I will be presenting my report on constitutional values as a legal framework to overcome modern challenges. And I'll be presenting Georgian practice, which is not best practice, I could say, currently, but I think it will still be interesting academically, as I believe that every country has its own unique practice and unique experience, especially when we're talking about the Constitution, because as I already said, the Constitution is a document which lays out the principles and the values of any state. As was mentioned by my Polish colleague, national values are also constitutional values, and in that way, as a political expert, I think that we should contemplate the constitutional practice of any state stemming from cultural science, because it's actually the historical experience and cultural prerequisites of any society define the Constitution eventually, because the Constitution, just like any legal act, is first of all represents a political will, which is then laid out in a regulatory document. And in that regard, I'd like to say that in terms of the Georgian constitutional practice was influenced by several historical factors. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, many states, including Georgia, did not have such a big experience of statehood. It was just a very brief 3-year First Republic experience, which lasted until 1921, and after that it was once again a 70-year period when we were not independent. So we were part of the Soviet Union, and before that, for the last time, the independent single unified Georgian state was only in the 15th century, so that was a 500-year gap of Georgian statehood that we had, and in that way Georgia faced really serious challenges in terms of its self-identification. So the Georgian society and the people and the political elite of Georgia were facing an issue of what should the new Georgian statehood be like, and what should the national and governmental values be like, what should the national project of the Georgian government be like. And to answer these questions, we had to reach a consolidation of the whole Georgian society, but coming from political turbulence, unfortunately, the Georgian society, after the independence, was not able to immediately answer these questions, and Georgia only adopted its constitution years later. Although 9th of April of 1991 was the independence, only several years after the Constitution came. And that's a historical factor that impacts the constitutional practice of Georgia. And the second thing is that Georgia, as we believe, did not obtain independence, but, that's a disputed issue, but restored its independence. So Georgia believes itself to be the descendant of the first Georgian state, which was there until 1921. And we have a second constitution as well, as it's a descendant of the first constitution. I would say in terms of constitutionalism and political science, we could consider the masterpiece of that a masterpiece of constitutional mind, because it had values that even for Europe of the second decade of the 20th century were progressive, such as a secular state, where it was clearly defined that all religious denominations have equal rights, and according to the Constitution, it was prohibited for government institutions to finance a certain religion. For instance, gender equality, already we could say then, it was involvement of women back then already, and it was alien for many European countries back then as a policy, and women represented religious and other minorities, and we guaranteed the freedom of speech, we guaranteed equal rights for the representatives of any ethnic groups, of all ethnic groups. And it's quite interesting that because Georgia has a bad practice, unfortunately, of ethnically territorial conflicts, even then Georgia in the second decade of this 20th century was prepared to contemplate the right of self-identity of the ethnic minority of Georgia. In the archives, we find materials that back then the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Georgia at that time was negotiating that issue with the representatives of the Abkhazian people. But afterwards, the restoration, the destruction of the First Georgian Republic held up and paused that process. So because of that practice, of course, our expectations were too high for the second constitution. But actually, the second constitution, which is the successor of the first constitution, did not live up to these expectations. Why? Because there were other political factors at play. The second constitution was adopted not when the whole society was one and when there was harmony and consensus politically and socially, but only after the Civil War, and then a new power came to rule in Georgia. That's what I wanted to say. The new Constitution of Georgia of 1995, together with being the main regulatory document, also served as an attribute of the legitimizing Shevardnadze's administration. You even see how he came to power. He didn't come there through elections. He wasn't even directly involved in the political events that took place in Georgia then. He came from Moscow after everything was already finished, and the society in Georgia saw him as a person who just came pretty much out of nowhere and became the leader of the state. He was invited, you could say, the winners, if you could say that there are winners at all in a civil war. So he had a legitimacy crisis, and the constitutional process was used by the political elite as a factor to legitimize their regime. And in that way, I wanted to say that when the Constitution is used as a factor of legitimization, we cannot speak of that being a factor for consolidation, because back then the society was already fragmented, and the alienation of society from the constitutional process has exacerbated this issue. And on the other hand, I wanted to say that back then the Constitution also had a lot of advantages, because it was based on values such as human liberties, human rights. They recognized all of the main human rights, and there were foundations to create a democratic state, because that was the choice back then of the Georgian people according to the Constitution. But unfortunately, not only Shevardnadze's administration, but any other administrations, for some reason, the democratization of the country would put that as secondary. You could say that Gamsahurdze's administration would say that freedom first, then democratization, and Shevardnadze's administration said first stabilization, then democratization. And the Saakashvili's administration put as a priority modernization of the country, and the current powers focus on sustainable development, and the democratic principles in the Constitution become secondary priorities for the Georgian political elites. Why? Because it's one thing when there's a declared course, pro-European course. In practice, every elite strives to achieve in the parliament a constitutional majority, and that creates a problem. And on the other hand, there's a problem that every elite wants to use that majority in the parliament in order to change and amend the Georgian constitution in order with the political agenda. So in that way, we got a constitution in the end that since 1995, there were more amendments to the American Constitution since the second half of the 18th century, and already the Constitution is no longer that regulatory document that laid out the fundamental principles that the government should have been formed on, but it's just legally already quite a complex document that even sometimes looks like a special law on something. Like, for example, there's two examples that the administration of Saakashvili tried to amend the Constitution of Georgia and try to turn Georgia into a quasi-parliamentary republic. What I mean is that the president is elected directly, but the main person in the country is the prime minister. And a lot of people saw it as an attempt of the Georgian president to prolong his power as prime minister of the country. And then the power after him used the constitution in their position in parliament in order to conduct an effective election campaign. And that's also a bad thing, because a lot of amendments made to Georgia's constitution, like, for instance, there comes a power that is positioned as leftist, and they left a part of the constitution that says that the taxes need to be increased only by referendum. Why? Because that could be seen as not quite correct in society, that they want to up the taxes, and then that created an economic problem. And another thing is the identification of marriage. Marriage is defined by the civil code, and there's no need to write about that in the Constitution once more. And selling agricultural land, it's populism, pure populism, because they wanted to ban the sale of agricultural land to other states, but actually what they wanted to do, when we analyzed the practice, it was only 0.78% of agricultural land are actually in the property of foreign nationals, and not compacted in one region, but across the whole country. So that wasn't even a problem back then, but...
So for ultra-right voters, so these were the initiators of that amendment. Another thing is that the power is detached when they have the constitutional majority. So because the prime minister promised to change the electoral system, so it wasn't demanded by the people, it was initiated by prime minister, and they decided just to forget it. So, and then a very painful process of negotiations went on between the ruling party, between the opposition, and the consensus was reached. But unfortunately, it wasn't a consolidation-based consensus of our people with government. It was a consensus between the parties, plus foreign ambassadors and partner countries, because this involved the ambassador of the United States, France, Germany, and other diplomats. A lot of foreign diplomats were involved in that. So a compact was made between them. But people were standing behind. It was out of the game. Now this, for the Georgian constitutionalism, this was not the best example. It doesn't demonstrate that our constitution would be able to would serve as a consolidating factor in the society. Now it is more like a fragmenting factor, basically. Despite many reforms, many successful reforms in Georgia, like anti-corruption or crime struggle, so constitutional struggle still leaves much to be desired. Because this is an issue. Time, please. Yes. Because this is an issue which does not fully comply with the spirit of Georgian constitution. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabranidze. Yes, we have collaborated, we lawyers of Kazakhstan and Georgia have collaborated for a long time, and we had Georgi Papuashvili today, and he's our long-standing friend. We have worked a lot together. What buys me here with the Georgian lawyers, it's frankness and openness. They speak not only about the success, but also they speak about the problem. They voice out problems. They offer their mistakes to us to save us. We went to Georgia to study the reforms in the law enforcement and judicial systems, so introduction of the elements from the English law into the criminal laws of Georgia. So we were talked about that, and specialists from law enforcement authorities and the Supreme Court, they said, hey colleagues, they often told us, now we succeeded with that, but that was not quite successful, so please do not repeat our mistakes. And now when talking to Georgian specialists, I was convinced that that phrase, that is more often repeated than not. It is negative results are also results, but this is also true. So anyway, thank you so much for all the assistance that you provide to us, and I wish our Georgian colleagues every success. Thank you. And the next speaker is Kabdul Samik Aidkojin, professor of the Eurasian Academy of Law, named after D.Kunayev, Doctor of Law, professor. And I would like no hints, nothing like that. It's just follow speakers. Please keep your time and please be in time. We have more speakers to come. Yes, thank you, Igor Ivanovich. And let me congratulate all Kazakhstanis and participants of this international conference on the 25th anniversary of our Constitution. Currently, it's very difficult to over-exaggerate the significance of the Constitution as the basis for legitimacy, as a core, a legal core for consciousness, and as a pillar of the civil society. So in this respect, the sustainability of the basic law of Kazakhstan, and it was proved by these 25 years. So it showed that it is the Constitution that ensures political stability in this country and successful development of government institutions or civil society institutions. In this respect, the Constitution of Kazakhstan has identified the principles of relationships between people, society, and government. So I need to say that it is in Kazakhstan, unlike other countries. I mean, in Kazakhstan, you can observe special attitude towards this Constitution Day, a truly basic law day, And every year we have this we have roundtables, international conferences to celebrate the Constitution Day, because they all aim to form and shape the constitutional consciousness in people. So this attitudes by the government and by the society to the Constitution as the basic law is based. It is based not only on the Constitution, but also on other legal norms. And they say it is only the Constitution which has the supreme judicial power. And institutions such as the presidential form of government it's a very flexible institution, and it is constitutionalized, and it helps to effectively utilize both the presidential and parliamentarian branches. The division of powers set forth in the Constitution of Kazakhstan was highly appreciated by foreign specialists, and our domestic parliamentarism has become stronger as a key element of democracy. Also, the institution of constitutional control is highly spoken of by our foreign specialists. And we have some Russian scientists like Vladimir Sirkin and other specialists. They say this constitutional control institution in Kazakhstan ensures the consistency and succession in power of this country. And we were, the proof was a year ago when the supreme power went from the first president to the second president. With these international challenges and global challenges, Kazakhstan relies upon the constitution as a sovereign and modern country with identity. In this respect, talking about the constitution, I should say that foreign experts, namely U.S. scientists Elton and Ginsberg, they carried out a comparative research of more than 300 constitutions of the world. They said that the Western European constitutions live on average 32 years, in Asia 19 years, in Latin America 12.4 years, in Africa about 10 years. This is the average lifetime of a constitution. Now our constitution is 25 years old. So in this respect we are approaching European standards now, which suggests that the Kazakhstani constitution is a modern, current legal act that reflects all appropriate political and social realities. In this respect, I should say that the constitution of our country it served as a basis to implement different strategies like Kazakhstan 2050, and we are also going the president is going to adopt a concept soon on developing the civil society in Kazakhstan until 2030. So in this essence, we see that it is all based on the constitution, and all appropriate government or state events are carried out, and they all help implement the status of Kazakhstan as one of modern and democratic countries in the world. So we see that our constitution possesses a great potential, and we already see that other constitutional reforms should be done through presidential decrees, as we had before, like in 2005, for instance. So there was a presidential decree by the first president. So in this respect, we see to fully implement the potential of our constitution, we need proactive activities by our parliament. Constitutional Council, it can also make some efforts in this respect. And I should say that it is the Constitutional Council which shows and which demonstrates a great vector to follow and to realize the full potential of our constitution. A great role in that is also played, or can be played, or must be played by the institution, by civil society organizations and institutions, because it is a sum of constitutional values that consolidate our society into one unity, So that's why we call the Constitution of Kazakhstan as the basic law of not only the country as a legal entity, as a legal law, but we also call it the basic law of the society. And you are all well aware with the fact that in the theory of the constitutional law, we have a discussion whether the constitution is a basic law of the country or is it the basic law of the society as well. So in that regard, we have this position which dates back to the Soviet times, and it says that constitution is only the basic law for the country, for the government, and it can't serve as a basic law for the society. So regarding this position, I should say that the Constitution of Kazakhstan is, of course, it is the basic law of the country, of the government, because it possesses the supremacy, the supreme power in the legal system of Kazakhstan, and it has the direct effect. So we have a legal act, like a legal norm, a long-term norm. At the same time, in its content and its essence, the Constitution of Kazakhstan, sorry, the sound is lost. We lost the sound. So unfortunately we lost the sound. The sound is on, it's restored, it's okay. Now we can hear you again. Yes, thank you so much. I wish everyone to stay in good health. Thank you, Mr. Kozhin. It's an interesting speech, and those discussions about whether the constitution is the basic law of the country or of the society, I think many people will think about that, or you confirm that strong scientific school, it is the Eurasian Academy of Law. It has the strong school, so thank you so much. The next speaker is Mr. Pierre Tiffin, Director of the Institute of Law, University of Lorraine, winner of state awards, expert in administrative law, digital law, and our colleague from France. You're welcome. Mr. Balakbayev and my friend Nur-Sultan, I would like to talk about evolution of constitutional control in France, which is an interesting topic. It is a topic interesting both for France and Kazakhstan. I'll be talking about important factors in France during the Fifth Republic. The constitutional control was exercised by the Constitutional Council, and today it is a real protector of fundamental rights. In France, during the Fifth Republic, this control of constitutional laws, of course, it is obvious that it has always been, it was by Constitutional Council, but before the Constitution went into effect on October 4th, 1958, we had never had a Constitutional Council or a body worth the name. The French Republican tradition prior to 1958 was based on the idea of parliamentarian supremacy, so supremacy of law. So in this tradition, Parliament was considered to be the expressor of the national will. So it had a sovereign power, and other government bodies like executive or judicial branches were kind of subject to it. So to rationalize, to make parliamentarism better or improve it, so the establishment of the Constitutional Council demonstrated the will to do away with that tradition. Actually, the forefathers had only one limitation. It was not about making it a real and constitutional council, that is a court instance in charge of rights and freedoms, just like in Germany or the United States. So Michel Debré, the inspirer of the 1958 Constitution, he said the Constitutional Council must be a weapon against any deviation from the parliamentary system. It was only about preventing the chambers, the parliament chambers, to encroach on this constitution. So it's just a simple balance of the institutions, and this body now protects the rights and Adams. So it's the Constitutional Council. This is what it is about. When it was established in 1958, the Constitutional Council only verified the compliance of laws with the Constitution in its strict sense. Only the text, the wording, the Constitution of October 4th, 1958, so it kind of compared it. So it was guided by a traditional approach, according to which the sole role of the Constitution was to identify the role of government authorities, and the preamble in the Constitution and the rights and freedoms that they determine are only a declarative, have only a declarative value, so they should not be approved judicially or legally. In the current wording, this preamble of this constitution only has a declaration that the French people solemnly declares its adherence to human rights and principles of national sovereignty, because as they are defined in the Declaration of 1859, and it was also approved by the preamble of 46 and the ecological charter. Anyway, this is a very loose tie, and it did not help the government, the state council, to recognize the constitutional value of this preamble, as it passed a resolution on IKEA company in '65. So this approach was also chosen by the Constitutional Council in 1971 on the freedom of associations. So the laws are now controlled not only with regards to the Constitution of 1958, but also famous French constitutionalists call it a constitutionalism block. So what I mean is the laws could be recognized unconstitutional, not only with regards to the rights and procedures, but also encroaches on the rights and freedoms. The second factor which makes the Constitutional Council an instance that protects rights and freedom, it is about the pre-constitutional issue. And it's first reading, this constitution provides only a priori control, that is, control prior to adoption of laws. The council can be referred to by the president, prime minister, chairperson of the National Assembly, chairperson of the Senate, and since 1976, 60 deputies or 60 senators, and they can refer to it only when the text is published, which means only within 15 days after that. Once the law is adopted, you can't dispute its status anymore. On the one hand, the Constitutional Council cannot refer to it, but on the other hand, other instances, like administrative courts, they think they do not have the right to control the Constitution action. And for the administrative instance, the special problem is that the administrative act was adopted to implement the law which contradicts the constitutional norms. In this case, yes, undisputably, this drawback will mars the constitutional act. In this case, the administrative instance will refuse to revoke this act in dispute, even if it is unconstitutional. Although it is authorized to control the administrative acts with regards to the law, it thinks it has no right to assess the constitutionalism of this law or revoke it. However, in this hypothesis, this act in dispute is when it complies with the law, then the law is like a screen between the act and the Constitution. So it stays there. If we have such challenges, there is another decision. Once the Constitution is revised, the 2008 revision, so it has a posteriori control of the constitutionalism. So then, if the court says that the legal provisions violate the laws and the rights, so the Constitutional Council can review this according to the Constitutional Court. In this new procedure, we have three instances. First is the justice of the first instance, who refers to the violation of the Constitution. And then we have the higher instances or higher courts, the State Council as an administrative instance, and also the Court of Appeals when it goes to the courts. So they work as a filter on that. And this must be a new question or a question of some substantial character. Otherwise, they cannot be sent to the Constitutional Council. Also, the Constitutional Council has the right to make decisions on unconstitutionality of a law or revocation of that law. should say that the relationships between the higher instances are new for France. They still do not turn the Constitutional Council into a Supreme Court, because it is only an evaluation of constitutionalism or compliance with the Constitution. This is the call of the State Council or Constitutional Court. So the State Council and the Constitutional Council have no hierarchy, any hierarchies or ties. So these are two supreme instances of two levels, and they decide whether the question should be sent to the Constitutional Council without appealing. Also, on a more general term, the decision in the French system, it doesn't have the system or a provision which allows the party to directly go to the Constitutional Council. So that's a priority issue, as like preamble to the Constitution helps to better protect the rights and freedoms, even if you believe that the constitutional system of France is not perfect yet.
Thank you very much, dear Professor. I'd like to say that the similarity of our constitutions is clearly visible most of all on an institution called the Constitutional Council. And it was rightly said that in the majority of European countries, pretty much in all of them where they have constitutional courts, the Constitutional Council in France and Kazakhstan, and in some African countries. And the most interesting part is that the process of modernization of constitutional justice in our countries is also similar. Because I remember somewhere around the middle of the 2000s, we had a visit to Kazakhstan of the representative of the Constitutional Council, Pierre Mazot, of that time, and he, with great pleasure, stated that in Kazakhstan, they also have a constitutional council like they do in France, and said that the Kazakhs are doing a great job, that they didn't just limit themselves to preliminary constitutional control. The Constitutional Council, from the very beginning of Kazakhstan, also exercised further constitutional control by contemplating the applications from the courts, considering the applications from the courts. Wherever a court would have doubts, they might put the case on hold and refer to the Constitutional Council. And he said that's very interesting, because even us, as the founders of the Institute of the Constitutional Council, with great interest are studying your experience. I don't know, back then the President Sarkozy when he was making a decision on those amendments to the Constitution that you just told us about, and the Constitutional Council of France was given the right, whether or not it was given the right to further on control the laws through the courts. Whether you considered Kazakhstan's experience for that, I don't know. What Pierre Mazot said wasn't enough for me to know that, but still a certain element of similarity of our reforms does coincide. And now Kazakhstan went further, and after 2017, the right to address the Constitutional Council when checking the laws that have already been brought into effect. Not only the court can do that, but also the president, the head of state, has that ability. And we cannot rule out that for some time, both the Constitutional Council of Kazakhstan and the Constitutional Council of France, that either of them might get the right to even consider individual applications from citizens, what the Venetian Commission tends to insist on, and other European lawyers. Well, we'll see, and right now we are watching carefully the reforms taking place in France, as it's not only a feeling of sympathy, right, traditionally from the Kazakh people that we have for the French, but also a similarity of our legal systems is what characterizes this professional interest. Thank you, Mr. Pierre Tiffin. And now moving on, with great pleasure, I'd like to pass the floor to Igor Matskevich, the president of the Union of Criminalists and Criminologists of Russia, honored scientist of the Russian Federation, Doctor of Law, Professor. Please, Mr. Matskevich. Dear Mr. Rogov, this is Professor Zaitsev once again. Now, Igor Mikhailovich was participating in our conference, but because he is one of the heads of the Supreme Commission of the Ministry of Science of Russia on business, he just had to leave and go to the government of Russia and asked me to apologize for you that he couldn't personally say his words, but through me, he asked to convey to you his heartfelt words of gratitude and congratulations to Kazakhstanis and to you personally, Mr. Rogov, with the great holiday of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. Thank you, Mr. Oleg, Mr. Matskevich, Mr. Oleg Zaitsev, and I do understand why you cooperate with the Eurasian Academy of Law, because the rector of this academy is the president of the Kazakhstani Criminologists Association. And Igor Mikhailovich is the president of the Union of Criminalists and Criminologists of Russia. You're professionally tied to him as well. Exactly. And I already foresee that Mr. Janeri is here as well, and to him, my best wishes. Hopefully we will cooperate, and for the Union of Criminalists as well. Well, then the next speech is also from our Russian colleague, Alexei Aftonamov. Kazakhstani lawyers know him very well. It is the vice rector and head of the Department of International Law of the Institute of International Law and Economics, named after Griboyedov, member of the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Doctor of Law, Professor. Please, Mr. Aftonamov, you have the floor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think we're falling behind schedule, but I'll try to save your time. Firstly, good day, or Khairli Kun, to all of our colleagues from Kazakhstan and other countries. And firstly, I'd like to congratulate, of course, as all of my colleagues already did, the whole of the Kazakhstani people with the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. I believe it's quite an important holiday and quite an important milestone in the development of modern statehood of Kazakhstan. And I would like to draw your attention firstly in my very brief speech. I'll just be speaking briefly that we talked about the values that are within the Constitution, but in my opinion we should talk about the Constitution as a value, because the majority of countries have constitutions nowadays, and even those countries that don't have a constitution, they also strive to adopt laws similar to a constitution. I'm talking about not the UK, which already have adopted it, but other countries as well that are trying to adopt a constitution. There's countries where they already have a constitution, but the constitution is more of a general nature declaration, but they adopt a constitution because nowadays a constitution in itself and its presence is a value in itself. As lawyers, we talked about that, and I'd like to note that we're talking about legal culture as well. The legal culture has no doubt about the value of the Constitution. Even in the 19th century, it's certain political regimes, it wasn't evident, but They saw the adoption of a constitution even as an incorrect step, a step in the incorrect direction in the development. It was regarded as an anti-value, but we see it now as a benefit that helps us implement our values, and it's a priority benefit in regards to other benefits, and this is what we see as a value. Just the notion of value itself, it's a pretty new notion that we've had since the end of the 18th, but also up to the 21st century. It's an undisputed value, and I'd like to say what the value of a constitution is. What are the characteristics that make the constitution for the majority of the population? We already talked about some of the characteristics, like the supremacy of the constitution, and when we talk about supremacy, we talked about that a lot actually today. One of our colleagues compared the Constitutional Council of France plays a great role in the development of Kazakhstan. But back then it wasn't evident that but however, various theories stemmed from that, and various models of ensuring the supremacy of the Constitution. I'd like to draw your attention also to the fact that even in countries where they have constitutional courts, not always are they seen as part of the judicial system. In some countries, constitutional courts are even, they have a special status, separate from the judicial system, according to the constitutional provisions. So that's another thing that needs to be kept in mind, that it's another sort of shift to what is taking place in France and in Kazakhstan, that they have constitutional councils. It's an extrajudicial body that works with the Constitution but ensures, carries out procedures that are close to that of judicial nature, and that's an important thing. And the value of the Constitution is also that these norms they have direct effect. That's another thing that was mentioned today, including in Kazakhstan, that the constitutional norms and their direct effect is ensured. And also the Constitution has supremacy, and it's closely tied. That's pretty important. And we also said that constitutionalism was born at the end of the 18th century, and it was born together with, or at least with the triumph of the concept of human rights. So the ensuring of a legal status of an individual is also one of the elements that makes a constitution valuable. That is the power of the supremacy of a constitution, that human rights may be ensured even with a not-so-perfect legislation through the ensuring of this priority and the supremacy of the Constitution over all other laws. And it's important for human rights to find that balance between the government, the society, and the individual. And when we talked about the Constitution as the main law, the basic law for the government and society, it is a basic law, but it's also a legal law in a way. That we talked about that there was a concept of developing civil society in Kazakhstan, and that's not by chance, I believe. Because without constitutional support, that wouldn't be able to develop further. And the Constitution is what ensures the rights of the individuals. And I'd like to say that in any case, the rights of the individuals are, the Constitution governs, first of all, the legal status, and not only the rights, but also the responsibility, because these things are essentially connected with each other. And of course, it fits the basic law of the state. It also ensures the functioning of the government authorities and the implementation of public power. There was a lot of questions at one point in Kazakhstan as well that have to do with the terms of the president, and the Constitutional Council considered cases of that, and they found, of course, a wise and balanced decision. And then we're also talking about that the Constitution not only provides for the functioning of the whole system of government power, but it also puts responsibilities on it, and they have to be subordinate to these responsibilities. So amendments are also made through this mechanism, but at the same time, the government takes on a responsibility to carry out these laws, and that's what is ensured by the Constitution, this balance. And the last thing I wanted to point out is two elements. There's the stability of legal regulation, and the Constitution, with its amendments, has existed for 25 years, because the elements that are founding for the Constitution were established back then in the 90s. The Constitution is important for any government, any state. And the Constitution should, of course, reflect relevant needs of the people, and also be future-proof. But at the same time, the ability to change the Constitution, that's also one of the elements which makes the Constitution valuable. I wouldn't say the Constitution was amended that often. I mean, 97, 98, 2007, 2011, 2017, and 2019. So once every 5 years, that's okay. So we live in sort of 5-year periods. In 5-year periods, a lot can change. And through that, the Constitution can develop its potential as a foundation for all of law. And it's impossible without that to talk about legal regulation. So the Constitution ensures that foundation for that. So that's very brief in talking points. I apologize for maybe not as substantiated talking points, but I think we'll meet in person as well, and we'll talk about these and other things with you. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Aftanamov. Quite an interesting speech. Some interesting information there. Thank you for the positive assessment that you're giving to our Constitution and those reforms that were conducted. The opinion of such a distinguished expert is quite important for us. Now, colleagues, me and the rector were just sitting here and exchanged opinions that why is it that in Kazakhstan it's not that popular, the feminist movements are not as popular. Probably because there are no real problems with defending women's rights, because the Kazakhs have always been quite respectful of women, and the Kazakhs have a tradition that any discussion, when guests come, it ends with the final word being given to the mistress of the house. And we are right now located at the Sorbonne-Kazakhstan Institute, and the director of that, or the mistress here, is the doctor of law, Ainur Sapitova. She's also a member of the National Council of Social Confidence and of Public Trust under the President, and head of the National Volunteer Movement Accelerator of Good. And she also received the medal today from the President of the Republic, the 25th anniversary medal. So Ainur, the final word we pass to you. Thank you. Good evening, dear conference participants, and thank you for the patience that you have had. So the topic of today's conference is a pressing one, and it is important, because it is on consolidation of the society in the context of global challenges. This is a topic important not only for Kazakhstan, but for the whole world community. What is important for the government and the society is, of course, the Constitution, which which actually sets forth the whole hierarchy, and its norms can be conveyed to other norms and to achieve other goals. And because the constitutional norms are have direct action, now we have our dear speakers who have mentioned that before, and it's my pleasure to join the thesis that the Constitution is, first of all, a document of a direct effect. That is why it is important, in my view, not only to explain the especially younger people, to explain them about the Constitution, but also I think we have, in some points, in some programs of our specialists, we have to revise some provisions or to specify them. Especially this concerns people who want to apply for public service. As for you may not know the exact number of members of parliament, so this is not quite interesting for some people. What is more important is to know the rights of citizens, and more importantly, how to implement your rights. I should say that all of us know that the Constitution, the attitude towards Constitution in each country differs. It is guaranteed by basic laws. The rights are guaranteed by laws, and these comply with the international laws. Say the freedom for expression of mind, the respectful attitude towards the Constitution, and so on and so on. I still should say that we have to understand it is impossible just to use propaganda everywhere and imbibe that. You have to bring up a person, you have to educate a person. In this respect, as a volunteer, because I'm doing a lot of volunteerism with many colleagues, so these volunteer activities show or even open up the mechanisms of human rights and citizens' rights. I'm convinced that any volunteer activities aim to implement the Constitution. When it's done by lawyers, and then when they skillfully show how they provide assistance as a volunteer, in such difficult times, this can only be commended. Dear colleagues, dear friends, we are seeing each other here in very unusual circumstances. The world community is surviving some difficult period. We have global challenges, and we can say that
the people throughout the world begin to realize that volunteers are they are coming to the forefront, and they help to consolidate the society, to unify the society, build trust between people, and it shows that the main ideas and values become top priorities for humankind. The development of a system-based volunteerism is possible only with joint efforts between countries, institutions of civil society. It is also important, and I would like to underline that it is important to study and involve international expertise and practices. The role of volunteers in the civil society and this good heart or goodwill help of volunteers has been commended by our president. We have more than 500 volunteer organizations in Kazakhstan, and President Tokayev has commended their work many times. I would like to steal some time and tell a few words about the role of volunteers of Accelerator of Good Izgilik Elshisi movement. So this is a national volunteer movement. It was born in ISK at our National Pedagogical University. This movement was joined by volunteers from many leading universities of our country. We hear today, we see in this platform, we have a lot of rectors of such universities, and jointly with their students, undergraduates, postgraduates, they provide some tangible support. We were supported by government authorities as well. Our volunteers also have public or civil servants. I would like to extend my special thanks to the anti-corruption service. I mean, the Agency for Anti-Corruption. They had supported us initially, and then we were joined by many other government bodies, and the government for citizens, that's electronic government for Almaty. We had collaborated before pandemic and now after. So some we set up the so-called law clinics at the university, at Abai University, Al-Farabi National University, Eurasian Academy of Law. So thank you, Amar Ali. He's now here. So this is a law clinic, which is some good phenomenon. So to provide people with assistance. I would also like to thank other universities, also employees of the justice bodies. With these centers for public services, we installed the law clinics are there. So they are licensed lawyers, so they provide legal advice on a free basis. But then when the quarantine was imposed, everybody went online to provide legal advice. Our volunteers from our law clinics, I believe they have contributed a lot, and we are going to continue working. Still, there is a number of problems which need settling. In our view, we need some regulation at the legislative level. Some incentives must be worked out to involve citizens in volunteer activities. So we have still this underdeveloped level of volunteerism. So the system of accounting, encouragement, or promotion of volunteerism needs to be developed. That all needs to be developed. There are different opinions also on charity activities. Some people think that some people lack trust towards charity foundations or organizations. Here we have to study the laws that can be applied to volunteer or charity activities. Like in many countries, the pandemic showed that thanks to volunteers, a lot of problems can be resolved. Basically, we need to develop at a systematic level, we need to develop these volunteer activities. But for that, we need to provide incentive at the government level. So we could include the volunteer activities as part of your total labor expertise or work expertise or work experience legally. So the labor codes of Kazakhstan should be amended to include those good faith volunteers who provide such activities on a permanent basis. So these years could be part of the total of their total experience. This is practiced in many other countries, you know. And in France, in the French Republic, the volunteers are considered to be like the overall work experience. We also believe that we might consider the fact that some young guys who provide volunteer services on a permanent basis, we could provide them with a mechanism to enhance their enrollment to universities, maybe some additional scores or grants, government grants to them, you know, something like that, some kind of incentives. It would be great if those candidates or young specialists who have been doing for volunteer activities for a long time, when they enroll the civil service, this could also be good, like a plus, an advantage when accepting this person as a civil servant. So this enrollment commission should consider all of those activities, but this needs to be legalized, of course. Maybe we should adopt a law on volunteer activities or amend it in some way. I would like to add that during these pandemic times, our volunteers were on the peak of the first and second quarantine or lockdowns. Jointly with other colleagues, they worked a lot on monitoring. So in early July, the whole June, they had worked and monitored the activities, so they made some conclusions. We need to set some norm, maybe establish an institution of public control. So the public opinion must be accounted at a legal basis. So I'm not going to take much of your time. I have provided my full report to the organizational committee of that conference. Still, I would like to tell, as a director of the Institute Sorbonne-Kazakhstan, Igor Ivanovich said I'm a hostess here, but you see, we are on a parity basis with the French side. So we have our colleague, Madame Christine Percier, and she does a lot for the development of our institute. On May 27th, we had the National Council of Public Trust under the President of Kazakhstan meeting, and our president actually pays a lot of attention to education and awareness, which is a good thing, because our president said we need to develop dual diplomas, so diploma education. So our rector, the rector of our university, Mr. Abai, does everything he can to develop this institute, Sorbonne-Kazakhstan. As of now, we have a lot of dual programs or dual diploma programs jointly with leading French universities, especially international law, European law, and we also have we have this Mr. Philippe Martinet, the French ambassador, who congratulated us. He pays due attention to the Institute Sorbonne-Kazakhstan. Now we have Consul General of the French Republic, and my colleagues of ISK and our practitioners and lawyers, and my friends and colleagues. I have my friend here, honorary president of the Strasbourg University, Christian Mester, and also Lorraine University Director of Law, Pierre Tiffin. And we have other colleagues, Jean Metz, Mr. Christian Boutier. I would like to extend my appreciation and thanks for your support in promoting this dual diploma program. And this receives due attention by our President Tokayev. The Academia of Institute Sorbonne-Kazakhstan, represented by Madame Pujol, she made an address to the students of Kazakhstan. She said that the development of ISK is a vivid example of a successful French-Kazakhstani collaboration. All I have to say in conclusion is that our conference is observed by our students, teachers, not only our teachers, but other universities as well, my colleagues from ISK, and they had worked during both lockdowns, the first and second quarantine. They worked as volunteers. So I would like to address our young volunteers. I would like to thank you for the work you do. You provide generous and free assistance. So by your actions, you show how it is important to have this solidarity between the generations. Thank you so much. And again, I would like to congratulate everyone on the 25th anniversary of the Constitution of Kazakhstan. May enjoy peace and prosperity, and together we will overcome all challenges and go through the pandemic. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you, Ainur Alimkhanovna. Dear colleagues, all speakers have spoken up. And as a tradition, we need to give the opportunity for those who want to ask questions or discuss. If you have any questions or discussions, you are welcome. It is now time before we adjourn. Well, then, I think so. The fact that we don't have anyone willing to speak, it is not because it's a boring or dull conference. I don't believe it's that the case. I think this is because we need to think about a lot of things, because some ideas may pop up later on. All materials will be published at the site, the Sorbonne-Kazakhstan Institute site, and also other portals. In my turn, I would like to, well, I think I won't be brave enough to conclude, but I would like to share some of my concerns or ideas, or the aftertaste that I get from these discussions is, to resist the challenges, including global challenges. We need the society, we need the government to possess some basic rod, so to say, like a beam, a legal rod that would allow to consolidate, that will allow for consolidation of this government or society. This will help withstand any disasters, man-caused or political, biological disasters, anything. I'm not going to assert that we have done away with the COVID and now we have the bright future in front of us. No, the problem will still stay serious. I believe we are going to, I'm afraid to tell, but I don't know whether for a long time or for a short time, but we are going to live in these non-standard conditions, you see. And I wish, and everybody wants all those old times to come back, but our initial experience already shows that we do need some moral or political values to be in place, because these help us withstand all those grievances, and bad things. I believe the discussion we have had today demonstrates that a lot of such values have been set forth in constitutions of many countries. When Professor Ait Korjan said, "What is a constitution?" When he said, "Is it just the basic law for the country, or is it does it include norms that apply to the society?" I believe if we take the example, the Constitution of Kazakhstan shows it's both. The main major topic is, of course, to identify the government mechanism, to know how these government authorities and bodies interact, their relationships with individuals and, personalities. But many constitutions, including the Kazakhstani one, have some provisions or values that provide some spiritual basic for functioning of the government and society. I believe in one of his speeches, I remember our first president, Nazarbayev, he was discussing on elaborating a national idea. So he said the main moments or the main components of the national idea are set forth in our constitution. So the constitution is also an ideological backbone, so to say, for the society. Well, I'm opening my constitution. The Republic of Kazakhstan proclaims itself a democratic, secular, legal, and social state whose highest values are an individual, his life, rights, and freedoms. So is it, if we understand that this is the backbone of our statehood, it is the foundation of our government mechanism. If we realize that, we understand it needs to be implemented. Now, paragraph 2 of the same article says the fundamental principles of the activity of the Republic are public concord and political stability. So public concord and political stability. Economic development for the benefit of all the nation. You see, each of those words has a sense. Not all of them have been implemented, but these are programs for action. Kazakhstan's patriotism. So, see, when the next principle was written, it looks like they had already foreseen that we're going to have this digitalization era, and we could apply it directly. It says, a resolution of the most important issues of the affairs of state by democratic methods, including voting at an all-nation referendum or in the parliament. So it's not only these methods, but other mechanisms that provide us with, that are given by digitalization and other advances in technology. So we have been facing that lately very often. So the values that we need to develop and to advance and implement, because Professor Sabitova was right when she said these need to be not only proclaimed, they should not be only proclaimed, they must be implemented and realized. Our citizens should perceive constitutional norms as a direct action document. So they should be implemented. They should, their rights and freedoms should be implemented, and this is what our volunteers do now. And I believe it's promising. It's promising, and it's important for the preservation of our society during these challenges. So I believe compliance with laws, discipline, respect for the rights and freedoms of any humans are the main component, the key component, and a prerequisite for survival of any nation, or maybe all of the humankind. Thank you so much. I would like to thank everyone for your work. I would like to congratulate you again on the oncoming holiday. So, a quarter of a century has passed since we adopted it, and it proved viable, and it proved its importance for the people of Kazakhstan. Again, congratulations, stay healthy, which is another important thing. Be happy, and thank you so much. Thank you, dear participants. and congratulations on the oncoming holiday. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting platform. Organizers, thank you. Thanks a lot. We will continue collaboration. As pandemic goes off, we will invite you. Thank you. Thanks.
Георгий, Тамарджоба. Рахмет. Ага. Рахмет. Большое спасибо. Амрали аға, көп рахмет сізге. Амрали аға, там это, звук надо включить. Господин Пудель.
Mr. Pudelka, we congratulate you on this high award and thank you so much, and thank you. Dear professors, thank you. Thanks for the conference. Mr. Avtonomov, thank you.
Скажи,